Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're taking on a mission that hits really close to home for pretty much every entrepreneur out there. We're looking at the ultimate transformation. How do you take a chaotic, completely founder-dependent business and flip it into a highly valuable, well-oiled machine, an asset that you can actually sell? If you're feeling like your business is running your life instead of the other way around, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself here. Would your business survive without you for 3 months? If your immediate gut reaction is just pure panic, yeah, you're experiencing the incredible pain and operational fragility of being the sole bottleneck in your own company. It basically means you haven't built a standalone business yet. You've just built yourself a really, really demanding job. Okay, so to get you out of the weeds, we've got a killer 6-step blueprint. We're going to cover escaping the founder's trap, mitigating fatal business risks, and productizing for scalable growth. Then we'll build a sales engine, drive up company value, and finally survive M&A due diligence so you can actually cash out successfully. Let's get into it. Section 1. Escaping the founder's trap. Let's dive right into our very first major hurdle, which is moving away from a business model that relies entirely on your daily attention just to stay afloat. The technical term for this whole bottleneck issue is key person dependency. This happens when a business gets overly reliant on specific individuals for critical operations or knowledge or relationships, and it acts as this massive single point of failure. The crazy thing is, it's super insidious because it usually sneaks up on you. Your most capable people, maybe it's you, maybe your lead developer or your top account manager, they just naturally take on more and more responsibility, and then boom, before you know it, all the institutional knowledge is locked up in just a few heads. And the reality of this risk is honestly staggering. 71%. Let that sink in. 71% of small businesses depend on just one or two key individuals for organizational success. Think about what that actually means. Your company's very survival is completely tied to those specific people sticking around. If they walk out the door tomorrow, take a leave of absence, or retire, your revenue literally walks right out the door with them. Section 2. Mitigating fatal business risks. So once we've recognized the huge danger of key person dependency, we have to look at the other hidden traps that can absolutely tank a company's valuation. And that really starts with looking closely at where the money is actually coming from. Let's look at a terrifying breakdown from a private equity firm evaluating a SaaS company for a leveraged buyout. Now, on paper, this company looks amazing, right? $200 million in annual recurring revenue. But look closer. Notice how just 5 customers make up $40 million. That is 20% of the total pie. One single customer alone accounts for $12 million. This perfectly illustrates a massive, massive risk, known as customer concentration. Basically, your revenue is way too reliant on a tiny subset of clients. Why is that bad? Well, if those top customers realize they hold all the leverage over your company, it can lead to some really unfavorable negotiations, huge margin compression, and just incredible revenue volatility. Absolutely no potential buyer wants to acquire a company where the loss of just one key client completely sinks the ship. Moving on to Section 3, productizing for scalable growth. So the big question is, how do we actually fix these dependencies on key people and key customers? The magic solution is systemizing your operations so they can run totally fine without the founder's direct daily involvement. We call this productizing for scalable growth. To show you how this works, let's look at entrepreneur Carl Hughes. He outlines 4 concrete steps he used to scale his agency Draft.dev. Step 1, niche down. Step 2, separate and track absolutely every task. Step 3, break down the most time-consuming tasks into documented processes. And step 4, hire a trailblazer. For example, Hughes actually hired a trusted friend named Josh as his very first trailblazer, just to test his newly documented writing processes. He had to make sure the system worked in the real world before bringing on dozens of other writers. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of niching down to create a standard service offering. Draft.dev's niche is incredibly hyper-specific. They write blog posts strictly for marketing teams at Series A and B funded startups that are trying to reach software developers. Wow. By narrowing your focus to a very specific service for a specific type of client, you basically eliminate operational chaos. You make your business incredibly easy to refer, and more importantly, it actually becomes possible to document and teach the entire process to someone else. Section 4. Building a sales engine. Okay, having a productized service is fantastic, but it isn't enough if you're literally the only person who knows how to sell it. To truly scale up, a founder absolutely must step away from being the primary salesperson. But this is where so many founders make a critical hiring mistake. They write up a standard job description, which is honestly just a list of tasks. What you actually need is a job design. A job design defines exact outcomes and what success explicitly looks like at 3, 6, and 12 months. We're talking about hitting specific revenue milestones or booking a certain number of meetings with your ideal customer profile. You have to design the job around these tangible outcomes before you ever try to hire your first sales leader.
Now, when you are finally ready to make that critical first sales hire, you need to look for these specific traits: startup experience, comfort with ambiguity, a track record of closing deals, autonomy, and coachability. Notice that enterprise experience is nowhere on this list. It's not the priority. You need someone with startup experience who is totally comfortable with ambiguity, someone who can operate in wet sand, so to speak. You need to hire a player who can actually sell in the trenches and close deals first. Only once the sales motion is totally predictable should you even worry about hiring a coach to manage a larger team.
All right, Section 5, driving up company value. So once you've got a scalable product and a sales engine that doesn't completely rely on you, we transition into the ultimate payoff phase. This is where we turn this newly scalable operation into a true asset that acquirers actually want to buy. This requires a massive mindset shift, and it's perfectly captured by a great quote from John Warlow, the author of Built to Sell. He says, "Stop using the language of a service firm and start using the language of a sellable business." It really hits the nail on the head. You have to stop viewing your company as just a collection of specialized services you perform and start viewing it as a standalone sellable asset. Warlow and the Value Builder system identify 8 key drivers of value, ranging from financial performance to management depth. A buyer is going to scrutinize absolutely all of them, but the absolutely crucial point here is achieving what's called the Switzerland structure. Just like the country, your business needs to be completely 100% independent. It cannot be reliant on any single employee, any single vendor, or any single customer. When you achieve that true independence alongside recurring revenue and deep management, your valuation literally skyrockets. Which brings us to Section 6, surviving M&A due diligence. This is the final grueling gauntlet. If you want to sell this beautiful asset you've built, you have to survive mergers and acquisitions due diligence. This is where a buyer comes in and scrutinizes absolutely everything.
Now, what's really eye-opening here is just the sheer volume of the legal and capital structure checklists required by buyers. It's intense. They want hard evidence of every single share issuance, all your existing debt instruments, and summaries of every material contract you've ever signed. If your business is currently running on handshakes and verbal agreements, well, the deal is going to fall apart right here. No question.
And it absolutely doesn't stop there. Look at the human resources side of things. Buyers need to see employment agreements, benefit plans, disciplinary actions, and standard operating procedures. Undocumented tribal knowledge, that will not survive an M&A audit. You need process-first operations where your workflows are meticulously mapped out and your company's knowledge is fully centralized and accessible to anyone. So that brings us to our final question. Based on everything we've covered today in this explainer, from the dangers of key person dependency all the way to standardized offerings in those brutal due diligence checklists, ask yourself, have you built a job that drains your energy or an asset that you can sell? It's a tough question, I know, but answering it honestly is the very first step toward building a business that finally works for you instead of the other way around. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you next time.